Captain Hyunwoo sat in his command chair, watching the stars move slowly past the bridge windows. His ship, the Terran Defense Corps vessel Steadfast, patrolled the outer edge of human space. It was quiet work, mostly checking on cargo ships and sending reports back to Earth. He had been doing this job for 5 years now, and nothing exciting ever happened. His communication officer, Lieutenant Jamin, looked up from his console. "Sir, we have an incoming message from Harmony's Gate colony." Hyunwoo nodded. Harmony's Gate was the farthest human colony from Earth, home to over 2 million people. Most of them were farmers who grew food for other human worlds. It was a peaceful place where families raised children and built simple lives among the alien stars. "Put it through," Hyunwoo said. The main screen flickered, and Dr. So Young appeared. She had been Hyunwoo's classmate at the military academy 15 years ago. While he chose to serve in space, she decided to help build new worlds for humanity. Her face looked worried, which was unusual for someone normally so calm. "Hyunwoo, thank you for taking my call," So Young said. "We have detected some strange energy readings in our outer asteroid belt. Our sensors show ships, but they are not human vessels. They are not responding to our communication attempts." Hyunwoo leaned forward in his chair. Unknown ships near human colonies always meant potential trouble. "How many ships, So Young?" "Our long-range scanners count at least 50 vessels. They are much larger than our ships. The energy signatures match no known human or friendly alien technology." She paused, looking at something off-screen. "Wait, there are more ships appearing. The count is now over 100. So Young, I want you to activate your colony's defense systems immediately," Hyunwoo said. "Send out an emergency broadcast to all nearby human ships. We are changing course to reach you as fast as possible." "Understood. Hyunwoo, there is something else. These ships, they are arranging themselves in attack formation around our planet. I think—" The transmission suddenly cut to static. Hyunwoo stared at the empty screen for several seconds. His heart began to beat faster. "Jamin, try to re-establish contact with Harmony's Gate immediately." "Trying now, sir." No response. "All communication channels are dead." "Navigation, set course for Harmony's Gate, maximum speed," Hyunwoo ordered. "Send an emergency message to Fleet Command. Tell them we may have a first contact situation gone wrong." The Steadfast turned toward Harmony's Gate, its engines pushing the ship as fast as it could go. But Harmony's Gate was 3 days away at top speed. Hyunwoo could only hope they would arrive in time to help. On Harmony's Gate, Dr. So Young ran through the colony's administrative center. Alarms blared throughout the building. Her staff worked frantically at their computers, trying to coordinate the colony's defense. "Ma'am, the unknown ships are moving into low orbit," reported her assistant, a young man named Woo-seok. "They are not responding to any of our messages." So Young looked at the main display screen. The alien ships were massive, each one larger than the biggest human warship. They had a reptilian design with armor that looked like scales. She had never seen anything like them in any human database. "Have all civilians reached the underground shelters?" she asked. "Most of them, ma'am. But many families in the farming areas are still trying to get to safety." In the farming district, a man named Tai Ho gathered his wife and 2 small children. He had built a good life here, growing crops under alien suns. His farm produced enough food to feed 1,000 people on other worlds. Now strange ships filled the sky above his home. "Papa, what are those ships?" asked his daughter, a girl of 7 years named Hyejin. "I do not know, little one," Taeho said, lifting her into his arms. "But we need to get to the shelter quickly." His wife, Kyung-hee, carried their baby son as they ran toward the emergency bunker built into the hillside. All around them, other farming families ran in the same direction. Children cried and adults shouted to each other, but everyone moved as fast as they could. In the colony's school district, teacher Mi Jin worked to get her students to safety. She taught children between 8 and 12 years old. Today, she had been explaining how planets formed around stars. Now she led 30 frightened children toward the underground shelter beneath their school. "Stay together, everyone," Mi Jin called out. "Hold hands with the person next to you. We are just going to wait in the safe room until the adults figure out what is happening." Young Dong-soo, one of her brightest students, looked up at the sky. "Teacher Mi Jin, why are those ships so big?" "I do not know, Dong-soo, but our colony has strong defenses. We will be safe." Mi Jin wished she felt as confident as she sounded. Above them, the alien ships finished moving into position. For several minutes, nothing happened. The colony's defense systems came online, pointing weapons at the unknown vessels. Human fighters launched from the military base, tiny compared to the massive alien ships. Then, without warning, bright beams of energy struck down from orbit. The first beam hit the colony's main power plant. The building disappeared in a flash of light, leaving only a crater of melted rock. More beams followed, striking the spaceport, the military base, and the communication center. Tejo saw the light coming down from the sky like the wrath of angry gods. He threw himself over his family just as the energy beam struck their hillside. The underground shelter, built to protect against storms and accidents, offered no defense against weapons designed to destroy cities. Mi-Jin pushed her students behind her as their school building shook. Emergency lights flickered on as the main power died. "Everyone stay calm," she said, though her own voice shook with fear. "We are safe down here, but they were not safe. None of them were safe." The bombardment continued for 6 hours. The alien ships, belonging to a species called the Vorthak, fired their weapons again and again. They turned cities into glass, melted roads into rivers of metal, and boiled lakes into steam. They did not stop until every sign of human civilization on Harmony's Gate had been erased. When the bombardment finally ended, Harmony's Gate was a dead world. No communications, no survivors, no trace that 2.3 million humans had once called this place home. The Vorthak ships gathered into formation and departed, satisfied with their work. They expected this demonstration would teach the other humans to stay away from space the Vorthak considered theirs. They would soon learn they had made a terrible mistake. Captain Hyunwoo arrived at Harmony's Gate 3 days later. What he found made him sick to his stomach. The planet that had once been green and blue now glowed red from orbit. The continents were covered in fires that would burn for months. The oceans boiled and steamed. Where cities had stood, only crater marks remained, burned so deep they looked like wounds in the planet's surface. "Sir, I am detecting no life signs," reported Lieutenant Jamin, his voice barely a whisper. "The entire planet appears to be dead." Hyunwoo stared at the screen showing the ruined world. He had known So Young since they were 18 years old. She had been smart, funny, and full of dreams about building better worlds for humanity. Now she was gone, along with everyone else who had called Harmony's Gate home. "Record everything," he said quietly. "Every crater, every burn mark, every piece of evidence. Then send it all to Earth immediately." "Sir, should we search for survivors?" Hyunwoo looked at the radiation readings from the planet's surface. Nothing could have lived through the bombardment. "No, there are no survivors. Send the data to Earth. Then we return to base." The images from Harmony's Gate reached Earth 4 days later through emergency quantum communications. The pictures appeared on news screens across the planet, showing humanity what had happened to their farthest colony. On Earth, in the underground command center beneath Luna City, Admiral Ji-hoon watched the recordings in silence. He was a tall man with gray hair and serious eyes. He had spent 30 years in the Terran Defense Forces, fighting pirates and dealing with minor conflicts. He had never seen anything like this. "How many people lived on Harmony's Gate?" he asked his aide, Colonel Yoon-ji. "0.3 million civilians, sir, plus about 50,000 military and support personnel." "All dead?" "Yes, sir, all dead." Ji-hoon closed his eyes. In his career, he had lost soldiers in battle, but never entire populations. "Do we know who did this?" Colonel Yoon-ji activated another screen. "Intelligence analysis suggests the Vorthak hegemony. The weapon signatures match their technology. The Vorthak are a reptilian species that has controlled this section of the galaxy for over 3,000 years. Why would they attack a peaceful farming colony?" "Unknown, sir. Harmony's Gate posed no threat to anyone. The colonists were farmers, teachers, and families. They had no military installations beyond basic defense systems." Admiral Ji-hoon stood up and walked to the large display showing human space. Red dots marked human colonies and green lines showed shipping routes. At the edge of the display, one red dot now pulsed black. "Harmony's Gate. Colonel, I want you to contact every government on Earth, every colonial administration, and every major corporation. Tell them we are calling an emergency meeting of the Colonial Defense Council." "Sir, the council has never met in full session. Getting agreement from all the different human factions could take weeks." "They will meet," Ji-hoon said firmly, "because if they do not, the Vorthak may decide to attack another human world." 2 days later, representatives from across human space gathered in the council chambers. President Chan-woo of the Korean Federation sat next to CEO Martinez of the Mars Mining Consortium. The Prime Minister of the African Space Union argued with delegates from the Europa Commonwealth. Normally, these people could not agree on trade policies or shipping regulations. Today, they watched the images from Harmony's Gate in complete silence. "Ladies and gentlemen," Admiral Ji-hoon said as the recording ended, "we face the greatest crisis in human history. An alien empire has destroyed one of our colonies without provocation or warning. 2.3 million human beings are dead." Ambassador Haiwan, humanity's chief diplomat, raised her hand. "Admiral, what do we know about Vorthak intentions? Have they made demands? Do they want us to leave certain areas of space?" "They have made no contact with us at all," Ji-hoon replied. "Intelligence suggests this attack was meant as a warning. They want us to abandon our expansion into what they consider their territory." "How large is their military force?" asked General Namjoon of the Earth Defense Forces. Colonel Yoonji stepped forward. "Intelligence estimates the Vorthak hegemony controls over 300 star systems. Their fleet consists of approximately 850 warships, most of them much larger and more advanced than our vessels. In a direct military confrontation, humanity would lose." The room fell silent. Several delegates looked at each other with worried expressions. President Chan Woo spoke first. "Perhaps we should consider negotiation. If they want us to avoid certain systems, maybe we can reach an agreement." "And if we negotiate now," said CEO Martinez angrily, "what happens when they decide they want us to abandon more systems? Do we just keep giving up our colonies every time they kill millions of our people?" "The alternative might be total war," President Chan Woo replied. "We cannot win a war against a force that advanced." Admiral Ji-hoon held up his hand for silence. "Before we decide anything, I want you to hear from Dr. Woo Jin, head of the Terran Research Division." Dr. Woo Jin was a small, quiet man who rarely spoke at government meetings. He stood up nervously and activated a new display screen. 5 years ago, my department began research on what we called Project Prometheus. The goal was to develop new military technologies that could give humanity an advantage against more advanced alien species. "What kind of technologies?" asked General Namjoon. "Unconventional weapons, sir." The project was considered too dangerous and was classified as theoretical only. However, given current circumstances, Dr. Woo Jin paused. The research focused on humanity's unique characteristics compared to other known alien species. "What characteristics?" "Our adaptability, sir. Our willingness to use any means necessary to survive. Most alien species fight wars according to strict rules and traditions. Humans do not." Colonel Unji looked interested. "Can you give us specifics?" "Most galactic civilizations fight to demonstrate superiority or to gain resources. They follow codes of honor and establish military doctrine. Humans fight wars to win them by any means necessary. We can use this difference as a weapon." Ambassador Haiwan frowned. "Dr. Woo Jin, are you suggesting we use terrorism and guerrilla tactics?" "I am suggesting we use every advantage we have, ma'am. The Vorthak expect us to mass our fleets and fight them in traditional space battles. Instead, we could use stealth attacks, psychological warfare, and weapons they would never expect us to deploy." Admiral Ji-hoon studied the research data. "How long would it take to implement these ideas?" "If we start immediately, we could have operational systems within 6 months." The room buzzed with quiet conversations as delegates discussed this option. Finally, Ambassador Haiwan stood up. "Before we commit to any military action, I want to try diplomacy one more time. Let me contact the Vorthak and attempt negotiation." "And if they refuse to negotiate?" asked President Chan Woo. Ambassador Haiwan looked at the image of burning Harmony's Gate still displayed on the main screen. "Then we implement Project Prometheus and show them that destroying human cities has consequences they cannot imagine." The vote was unanimous. Ambassador Haiwan would attempt diplomacy, while the military prepared for total war. 3 days later, Haiwan met with Vorthak representatives at a neutral space station. The Vorthak commander was a large reptilian creature with scales like armor and eyes like cold stars. He listened to her diplomatic proposals with obvious boredom. "Your species will withdraw from all systems beyond your original 12 colonies," the Vorthak commander said when she finished speaking. "You will not expand further into space we control. In exchange, we will not destroy your remaining settlements." "And if we refuse?" Haiwan asked. "Then you will join the 63 other species we have exterminated over the past millennium." Haiwan stood up slowly. "I have one message to deliver to your hegemony. You burned our first city. Now you will learn why that was a mistake you will never get the chance to repeat. The Vorthak commander laughed. Your threats are amusing, mammal. We have crushed civilizations far older and more advanced than yours. Perhaps, Haywan said as she walked toward the exit. But you have never faced humanity before. 6 months after the destruction of Harmony's Gate, the Vorthak expected to see human fleets massing for a desperate final battle. Instead, they found empty space where human ships should have been. Commander Donghyun floated in his small stealth ship, watching a Vorthak supply convoy move through space. His vessel, the Shadow Strike, was one of 50 ships in the first human ghost fleet. The ship was barely large enough for 5 crew members, painted black, and equipped with experimental technology that made it nearly invisible to enemy sensors. Target acquired, whispered his weapons officer, Lieutenant Subin. 3 supply ships and 2 escorts. Remember the mission, Donghyun said quietly. We hit fast, we hit hard, and we disappear before they can respond. The Shadow Strike and 4 other stealth ships moved silently toward the Vorthak convoy. The aliens had no idea they were being watched. For 3,000 years, the Vorthak had been the hunters in this part of space. They had never been the prey. Firing torpedoes, Subin reported. The human ships launched their missiles and immediately began moving away at maximum speed. The torpedoes struck the Vorthak supply ships before the aliens even knew they were under attack. 2 of the supply vessels exploded in bright flashes. The 3rd ship lost power and began spinning helplessly through space. By the time the Vorthak escorts realized what had happened, the human ships were already gone, vanished back into the darkness between stars. On the Vorthak flagship destroyer of worlds, Admiral Kethfor studied the attack reports with growing concern. In the past month, his forces had lost 12 supply convoys, 8 patrol groups, and 3 communication stations. The attacks always followed the same pattern. Small human ships appeared from nowhere, struck quickly, and disappeared before retaliation was possible. How are they finding our supply routes? Kethfor asked his intelligence officer. Unknown, Admiral. Our security protocols have not changed. The humans seem to anticipate our movements. What the Vorthak did not know was that human intelligence had been monitoring their communications for months. Dr. Jae Sung, a xenopsychologist working with Terran intelligence, had discovered that Vorthak military doctrine was extremely predictable. They followed the same tactical patterns their ancestors had used for centuries. They always send supply convoys along the safest routes. Dr. Jae Sung explained to Admiral Ji Hoon during a briefing on Luna Base. Their commanders value efficiency over security. This makes them easy targets for our ghost fleets. What about their response to our attacks? Ji Hoon asked. They are becoming frustrated and angry. Vorthak psychology suggests they cannot understand why we do not fight them in open battle. They consider our tactics dishonorable. Good. Keep them frustrated. Meanwhile, Captain Yuri worked on a different kind of warfare. She led a team of combat engineers responsible for Project Wildfire, seeding Vorthak-controlled space with hidden weapon platforms. Her ship, the Meteor, looked like an ordinary cargo vessel. Inside, it carried dozens of automated weapons disguised as space debris. Each weapon platform was designed to remain dormant until a Vorthak ship came within range. Then it would activate, fire everything it had, and self-destruct. Deploy another cluster in Sector 7, Yuri ordered her team. Make sure they look like normal asteroid fragments. Engineer Wu Chang activated the deployment system. Weapons away. They should be completely invisible to Vorthak sensors. The weapon platforms drifted away from the Meteor, spreading out over several thousand kilometers. To any passing ship, they would look like ordinary space rocks. But when a Vorthak vessel came too close, they would reveal their true nature. 2 weeks later, a Vorthak patrol squadron entered Sector 7. The lead ship, Scale of Justice, detected what appeared to be a small asteroid field, nothing unusual or threatening. Suddenly, 50 pieces of space debris came alive. Hidden weapons powered up and fired missiles, lasers, and kinetic projectiles at the Vorthak ships. The aliens found themselves under attack from every direction, by enemies they could not see until it was too late. Scale of Justice took 17 direct hits and exploded. The other ships in the patrol tried to escape, but more hidden weapons activated along their retreat route. By the time the ambush ended, the entire Vorthak squadron was destroyed, but the real genius of humanity's strategy became clear when Lieutenant Kyung-mi led the first boarding action against a Vorthak warship. The target was the heavy cruiser Apex Predator, damaged by Ghost Fleet attacks and limping toward a repair station. Kyungmi and her team of 30 Marines approached in a small assault shuttle, disguised as space debris. "Remember, we are not here to capture the ship," Kyungmi told her Marines. "We are here to turn it into a weapon." The Marines cut through the Apex Predator's hull and fought their way inside. The Vorthak crew, trained for traditional ship-to-ship combat, was not prepared for humans fighting inside their vessel. The Marines moved through the ship's corridors like ghosts, appearing and disappearing, striking from unexpected directions. "Engineering section secured," reported Sergeant Bo Kyung over the communication system. "Weapons bay secured," added Corporal Jinnae. "Bridge is ours," Kyungmi confirmed as her team overwhelmed the ship's command center. But instead of trying to capture the Apex Predator, the Marines planted antimatter charges throughout the ship. They set the charges to detonate when the ship reached the Vorthak repair station. "All teams extract immediately," Kyungmi ordered. "We have 15 minutes to get clear." The Marines escaped just as a Vorthak rescue fleet arrived to help the damaged cruiser. 7 Vorthak ships surrounded the Apex Predator, preparing to escort it to safety. When the antimatter charges exploded, the blast was visible from 3 star systems away. The Apex Predator became a miniature sun, destroying itself and the 7 ships that had come to help it. Admiral Kethvor received the report in his command center. 8 ships lost, no human casualties, no enemy vessels captured or destroyed in return. His officers looked at him nervously, waiting for orders. "Send a message to High Command," Kethvor said slowly. "Request immediate reinforcements. These humans do not fight like any species we have encountered before." "How many additional ships should we request, Admiral?" Kethvor studied the tactical displays showing human attack patterns. The mammals struck like parasites, causing damage far beyond what their small numbers should have been able to accomplish. They showed no honor, no mercy, and no interest in traditional warfare. "Request everything we can get," he said finally. "I think we may have made a serious mistake when we destroyed their colony." On Earth, Admiral Ji-hoon received regular reports from the Ghost Fleet operations. Human casualties were surprisingly low, while Vorthak losses continued to mount. But he knew this phase of the war could not last forever. Eventually, the Vorthak would adapt to human tactics or bring in enough reinforcements to overwhelm the Ghost Fleets. "Dr. Wu Jin," he said during a strategy meeting, "how long until we can move to the next phase of Project Prometheus?" "Our shipyards are working at maximum capacity, Admiral. We should have enough vessels for Operation Retribution within 6 months. What about our allies? Are any other species willing to help us?" Colonel Yunji shook her head. "The Galactic Council has officially declared neutrality. They say this is a dispute between humans and the Vorthak hegemony. In other words, they are afraid of the Vorthak and do not want to get involved." "That appears to be correct." "Sir." Admiral Ji-hoon looked at the star maps showing Vorthak space. Hundreds of systems, thousands of ships, billions of aliens who had lived for millennia believing they were the supreme power in this part of the galaxy. "Then we do this alone," he said. "Send a message to all human colonies. Total mobilization. Every ship, every weapon, every resource we have. The Vorthak wanted to teach us about extermination. Now we teach them." In the Outer Rim, Commander Dong Hyun prepared his Ghost Fleet for another raid. He did not know that this would be one of the last stealth operations of the war. Soon, humanity would abandon subtlety and show the galaxy what humans could accomplish when they stopped holding back. The Vorthak had burned humanity's first city. Now they would learn the price of that mistake. 18 months after Harmony's Gate burned, Fleet Admiral Inzu stood on the bridge of the massive human warship Retribution. Through the forward windows he could see the Vorthak home system of Kethmoran, 3 planets orbiting a red giant star. The largest planet was the Vorthak homeworld, home to 12 billion reptilian beings who had ruled this part of space for 3,000 years. Behind the Retribution, the largest fleet in human history stretched across space, 2,000 ships of every type, warships built for battle, cargo vessels converted into weapon platforms, and thousands of automated attack drones controlled by quantum computers. The fleet looked like a swarm of angry insects, chaotic and dangerous. "Admiral, all fleet units report ready for battle," said his communication officer, Commander Hae-young. "Vorthak defensive positions?" Insu asked. 800 ships in orbital defensive formations around their homeworld. Planetary surface shows massive energy shields and thousands of ground-based weapons. Intelligence estimates they have enough firepower to destroy our entire fleet twice over. Insu nodded. The Vorthak had recalled most of their military forces to defend their homeworld. After 18 months of losing ships to human Ghost Fleet attacks, they expected humanity to launch a desperate final assault. They were ready for a traditional space battle. They were not ready for what humans actually planned to do. Send the signal to begin Operation Homecoming, Insu ordered. The human fleet did not attack the Vorthak defensive positions. Instead, they spread out across the entire star system, surrounding the 3 planets and their moons. The Vorthak commanders watched in confusion as human ships took positions that made no tactical sense for a direct assault. On the surface of Kethmoran, General Namjoon led 50,000 human soldiers in preparing for ground operations. But these troops were not planning to fight Vorthak armies. Their mission was much more specific. Remember, we need to disable their planetary defense grid, Namjoon told his officers. Once their shields are down, the orbital bombardment can begin. Sergeant Minho, leader of the demolition team, checked his equipment one more time. Sir, are we sure about this? Once we bring down their defenses, the bombardment will destroy everything on the planet. The Vorthak destroyed Harmony's Gate completely, Namjoon replied. They killed 2.3 million civilians without warning. Now they face the same fate. The ground assault began at dawn on Kethmoran. Human soldiers, carried by stealth transports, landed at dozens of locations across the planet. But instead of attacking military bases or major cities, they targeted the hidden facilities that powered the planetary defense shields. The Vorthak military had never faced an enemy willing to fight on their homeworld. For 3,000 years they had been the aggressors, attacking other species on their own planets. Now, human soldiers moved through Vorthak cities like shadows, striking at infrastructure targets and disappearing before security forces could respond. Minho and his demolition team infiltrated the main power station that supplied energy to the northern defense grid. The facility was guarded by elite Vorthak warriors, but the reptilian soldiers were trained to fight in formation, not to deal with small groups of humans using guerrilla tactics. Charges placed on the primary generators, Minho reported over his communicator. Detonating in 30 seconds, the explosion lit up the Vorthak sky like a second sun. Across the planet, similar explosions destroyed power stations, communication centers, and shield generators. Within 6 hours, the defense grid that had protected Kethmoran for centuries went dark. In orbit, Commander Boram watched the planetary shields flicker and die. She commanded the human bombardment fleet, 300 ships carrying weapons designed for only one purpose: total destruction. All shield generators are down, reported her weapons officer, Lieutenant Sangwoo. The planet is defenseless. Begin bombardment, Boram ordered. Target all military installations first, then infrastructure, then population centers. The bombardment that followed made the destruction of Harmony's Gate look gentle by comparison. Human kinetic weapons dropped from orbit struck the planet with the force of nuclear explosions. Beam weapons, powered by the fusion reactors of entire ships, melted Vorthak cities into pools of molten metal. The Vorthak orbital defense fleet tried to stop the bombardment, but the human ships had spread across the entire system. Every time Vorthak forces moved to attack one group of human vessels, other human ships struck them from behind. Admiral Insu watched the tactical display as Vorthak resistance crumbled. Status report on their fleet? 67 Vorthak ships destroyed, sir. Another 150 damaged and retreating. Their defensive formation has collapsed. And the planetary bombardment. Commander Boram's voice came over the communication system. Northern continent is completely destroyed. Working on the southern cities now. Estimate complete surface sterilization within 72 hours. Insu felt no satisfaction as he watched an entire world die. This was not victory. It was extermination, exactly what the Vorthak had done to Harmony's Gate. But the Vorthak had started this war by murdering millions of innocent humans. Now they faced the consequences. On the surface of Kethmoran, the few surviving Vorthak civilians tried to flee the burning cities. But there was nowhere to run. The human bombardment continued day and night, turning forests into ash, boiling oceans into steam, and cracking continents with the force of the orbital impacts. Supreme Commander Vakthor, leader of the entire Vorthak hegemony, sent a desperate message to the human fleet. We surrender. Stop the bombardment. We will negotiate any terms you demand. Admiral Insu received the message and shared it with Admiral Ji-hoon on Earth via quantum communication. They want to surrender, Insu reported. What are your orders? Ji-hoon looked at images of Harmony's Gate, still displayed on his office wall. 18 months had passed, but the burned planet remained a dead monument to Vorthak cruelty. Did they accept surrender when So Young and her people tried to negotiate? Did they show mercy to the children on Harmony's Gate? No, sir. Then we show them the same mercy they showed us. Continue the bombardment. The bombardment of Keth Moran lasted 6 days. On the 7th day, the planet's surface was as dead as Harmony's Gate. The oceans had boiled away. The atmosphere glowed red with radiation. Nothing lived on the world that had once been home to 12 billion Vorthak. But Admiral Insu was not finished. Send a message to all remaining Vorthak forces, he ordered. Tell them they have 24 hours to surrender completely, or we will destroy every Vorthak world in the same way. The response came within 12 hours. The surviving Vorthak commanders scattered across hundreds of star systems sent surrender messages to the human fleet. They had seen what happened to their homeworld. They had no desire to share its fate. In the aftermath of the Battle of Keth Moran, Admiral Ji-hoon toured the human fleet. He walked through ships filled with exhausted soldiers who had fought the most brutal war in human history. These men and women had traveled farther from Earth than any humans before them, and they had won a victory that would be remembered forever. Admiral, asked Colonel Yoon-ji, what do we do with the surrendering Vorthak forces? Ji-hoon looked out at the dead planet of Keth Moran, still glowing red in space. We do exactly what they would have done to us if they had won. We make sure they can never threaten humanity again. The systematic destruction of the Vorthak hegemony took another 6 months. Human fleets moved from system to system, destroying military bases, dismantling weapons factories, and scattering Vorthak populations to planets too small and poor to support large military forces. When it was over, the Vorthak hegemony, an empire that had dominated this part of the galaxy for 3 millennia, no longer existed. Back on Earth, Dr. Yun Seo, a young historian, began documenting the war for future generations. She interviewed soldiers, studied battle records, and tried to understand how humanity had accomplished what seemed impossible. We were not stronger than the Vorthak, she wrote in her report. We were not more advanced. We were not better warriors. But when they destroyed our city and killed our families, they united us in a way that had never happened before. They turned our greatest weakness, our inability to agree on anything, into our greatest strength. Every human from every nation and colony focused on one simple goal, making the Vorthak pay for what they had done. The war was over. Harmony's Gate had been avenged, but the galaxy would never be the same again. 1 year after the destruction of Keth Moran, Ambassador Su Jin stood before the Galactic Council. The Great Chamber was filled with representatives from dozens of alien species, beings with scales, fur, tentacles, and forms that had no comparison to anything on Earth. All of them watched her with eyes that showed fear, respect, and uncertainty. The Galactic Council had existed for 8,000 years. In all that time, they had never seen an empire as powerful as the Vorthak hegemony destroyed so completely by a species as young as humanity. Honored representatives, Sujin began, her voice calm and clear. I come before you today to discuss the new reality our galaxy faces. The Althari ambassador, a tall being covered in blue fur, raised one of his forearms. Ambassador Sujin, the Council wishes to express our regret over the attack on your colony world. The destruction of Harmony's Gate was a tragedy that should never have happened. Thank you for your sympathy, Sujin replied, though I must point out that when we came to this council asking for help 18 months ago, we were told this was a matter between humans and the Vorthak hegemony. You offered us thoughts and prayers, so we delivered justice ourselves. The chamber fell silent. During the war, not one species had offered military support to humanity. They had all assumed the Vorthak would win quickly, and none of them wanted to anger such a powerful empire. The human response to the Vorthak aggression was thorough, said the Zenthari representative, choosing his words carefully. Perhaps more thorough than necessary. Sujin looked directly at the Zenthari ambassador. The Vorthak killed 2.3 million human civilians without warning or provocation. They destroyed an entire world. When we asked them to explain their actions, they threatened to exterminate our entire species. Tell me, honored ambassador, what would have been an appropriate response? Surely some form of limited retaliation would have been sufficient, the Zenthari replied. The complete destruction of their homeworld and the dismantling of their empire seems excessive. I see, Sujin said. So when the Vorthak exterminated 63 other species over the past millennium, that was acceptable. But when humans defend themselves with equal force, that is excessive? The Zenthari ambassador had no answer for that question. President Chanwoo of the Korean Federation watched the council meeting from his office on Earth. Around him, his advisors monitored diplomatic communications from across the galaxy. The message was clear. Every major alien civilization was reconsidering their relationship with humanity. Sir, we are receiving new trade proposals from 17 different species, reported his economic advisor, Minister Hyarin. All of them are offering much better terms than they provided before the war. What about the military situation? Chanwoo asked. General Namjoon recently returned from the front lines, activated a display showing human space. Our borders are now secure. 3 species that previously disputed our colonial claims have withdrawn their objections. The Kalathi Empire has requested permission to establish an embassy on Earth. The Kalathi? Chanwoo looked surprised. They refused to even acknowledge our existence 2 years ago. Times change, Namjoon said simply. Fear is a powerful motivator. In the rebuilt halls of Terran Defense Command, Admiral Ji-hoon worked with his staff to establish humanity's new military doctrine. The war against the Vorthak had taught them valuable lessons about galactic politics. We must be clear about our intentions going forward, Ji-hoon told his senior officers. Humanity is not interested in conquering other species or building an empire. But we will never again allow anyone to attack human civilians without consequences. Colonel Yoonji nodded. The Harmony Doctrine? Exactly. Any unprovoked attack on human populations will result in the complete destruction of the aggressor. No negotiations, no second chances, no mercy. Sir, some of our allies are concerned that this policy is too harsh, said Commander In-soo. They worry we might overreact to minor incidents. Ji-hoon pulled up images of Harmony's Gate on the main screen, pictures of the dead planet, still glowing red with radiation. There are no minor incidents when it comes to the murder of human civilians. The galaxy needs to understand that humanity has changed. We are no longer the naive species that trusted in diplomacy and hoped for the best. On New Geneva Colony, one of humanity's most prosperous worlds, Dr. Yeon Seo taught a class of 12-year-old children about recent galactic history. Her students came from families that had moved to the stars seeking better lives among alien suns. Teacher, asked a student named Young Ho, why did the humans fight so hard against the Vorthak? Other species in the galaxy seem to accept when stronger empires attack them. Dr. Yeon Seo walked to the classroom window, which looked out over the city of New Seoul. Humans walked through the streets alongside alien traders and diplomats, beings who had once considered humanity too weak and primitive to matter. Young Ho, most species in the galaxy think about survival in terms of submission or dominance. If a stronger empire attacks them, they either surrender or try to become the stronger empire themselves. But humans think differently. Yes, humans believe that if someone hurts us, we hurt them back, but much worse. We make the cost of attacking us so terrible that no one will ever want to try it again. Another student, a girl named Soo Young, raised her hand. But teacher, is that not cruel? The Vorthak civilians who died on their homeworld were not the ones who attacked Harmony's Gate. Dr. Yeon Seo considered the question carefully. It was not an easy one to answer. Soo Young, the Vorthak civilians elected leaders who decided to exterminate other species. They built the weapons that destroyed our colony. They celebrated when Harmony's Gate burned. When you choose to support a government that commits genocide, you share responsibility for its actions. So they deserve to die? I do not know if they deserved it, Dr. Yeon Seo said honestly. But I know that because we made the cost of attacking humans so terrible, no other species will choose to do what the Vorthak did. Sometimes preventing future genocide requires committing acts that are morally questionable. At the edge of human space, construction ships worked to rebuild Harmony's Gate. The planet would never be the same. The radiation would take centuries to fade, and the ecosystem was completely destroyed. but humans had decided to restore the world as a symbol. Captain Hyunwoo, now promoted to admiral, supervised the reconstruction from orbit. He had been the first to discover what the Vorthak had done to So Young and her people. Now he watched as new cities rose from the radioactive ground. "Admiral, the memorial is ready for your inspection," reported his aide. Commander Jaemin Hyunwoo took a shuttle down to the planet's surface. The memorial stood in what had once been the colony's capital city. It was a simple black wall with 2,347,000 names carved into the stone, every person who had died when the Vorthak burned this world. Above the names, an inscription read, "They thought our mercy was weakness." They were wrong about that too. Hyunwoo found So Young's name among the thousands of others. He placed his hand on the cold stone and remembered his old friend, her dreams of building better worlds for humanity, her kindness, her belief that different species could live together in peace. "I am sorry it took us so long to avenge you," he whispered. In the years that followed, humanity continued to expand across the galaxy, but they expanded differently than before. Every human colony now came with powerful defenses and rapid communication links to Earth. Every human diplomat carried the implicit threat of what had happened to the Vorthak. New species approached humanity carefully, offering friendship and trade agreements. They had all heard what humans did to enemies who attacked their civilians. None of them wanted to test whether humanity would do it again. The galaxy had learned a simple lesson. Humans were no longer the weak, naive species they had once appeared to be. They had become something much more dangerous, a civilization that would go to any length to protect their own people. On Earth, in a small museum dedicated to the Vorthak War, Dr. Yonseo finished writing the final exhibit. Visitors could walk through displays showing the Ghost Fleet battles, the siege of Kethmaran, and the aftermath of humanity's victory. The last display showed a picture of Harmony's Gate as it looked today, green forests growing in radioactive soil, new cities built on the foundations of the old, and millions of humans living and working on a world that had once been declared dead. Beneath the picture, a simple plaque read, "In memory of those who died, and in warning to those who would harm humanity, we do not forget and we do not forgive. Attack our cities and we will burn your worlds to ash." This is not a threat. This is a promise. Children from across the galaxy visited the museum on school trips. They learned about the species that had once ruled this part of space, and about what happened to empires that chose to make enemies of humanity. The lesson was simple, and it was effective. In a galaxy full of predators, humans had become the apex predator, and apex predators were not prey for anyone.